Hey, I'm Ted Santos, and I am your host, that show called Straight Talk. We are that talk show that is made for men by men. Except, ladies, you never want to miss it. And you already know by the title that I'm talking about women, except this is no question, no doubt, going to be from a man's perspective. And as you see, I'm out. It's in the woods, but you probably don't know. I'm a guy who's lived like Tarzan. I lived in Belize, literally in the jungle. No electricity, no running water. So this is my natural habitat. So I had to come out here and do something where I can be in my natural element, the wilderness. This is home for me. I don't live in the woods, but this is home-like for me. So anyway, as you see from the title, I want to talk to you about top 10 ways women sabotage themselves. Top 10 ways. So let me create a little context before I dive into the list. So I want to say this is a actually it's an extremely important topic. And this video is going to solve problems. At some point, every man is exposed to women, whether it's your mother, your sisters, your aunts, your grandmother, your neighbor, your co-workers, your girlfriend, your wife, your side piece, whatever it is. At some point, every guy is exposed to women. And I'm gonna bet most of you, if not all of you, have actually witnessed women sabotaging themselves. And some of you guys don't even know what's going on. It just looks like it's crazy. And we say, hey, well, that's just female nature and there's nothing you can do about it. Maybe the bigger problem is a lot of women are out here in the world and no man has ever corrected their behavior. And some women couldn't correct it because if it was their mother or grandmother, hell, the daughter or granddaughter inherited from her her caretaker, guardian. So how would she even know that she was doing something that was off or inappropriate or wrong? And that's like, that is like having a son who's a pyromaniac and he's always lighting matches in his room. If you never correct that son's behavior, eventually he's probably going to burn your house down. So a lot of girls don't get their behaviors corrected and they sabotage themselves. And guys just kind of look at that like, a lot of you guys don't even know what to do. So where I'm going with that is a lot of women are burning down the house. And if you guys haven't heard already, we have this they call Generation Z. These are the people born after 1996 up until I think about now. And you literally have a new segment of MGTOW. These young men are teenagers. And teenagers are saying they're going their own way. So why would a teenage boy, when there's a myth that boys only want one thing, a 16, a 13, 14, 17-year-old boy, young man, is going his own way? Why? He watched his mother's behavior when his parents went through a divorce. He watched his older brother deal with some things with his girlfriend or wife. And he knows his brother's a good guy and he's watching the games that he has to go through. So that's affecting the decisions these teenage boys are making. What are they doing? They're creating stronger bonds with their male friends. These are heterosexual guys. They have hobbies they're really into, and they are getting into personal development. They're studying longer and going to be a lot more intelligent. So ladies, in the end, you're going to lose. And somehow you ladies have run off the rails and don't even know it. So what I'm thinking is this. A lot of older guys really kind of let this bad behavior just run on and never corrected it. And now you have women burning down the house. So in the end, ladies, you're going to lose. You're just going to be ignored. And how that's going to play out in the long run, eventually these teenage young men who are ignoring you, they're going to be running things. Why? Because women don't build cities. You wait for men to do all the hard, dirty work. And they are already seeing how their mothers and sisters and aunts are behaving. They are going to do everything in their power to keep you out of their hair in the workplace. So ladies, either you're going to build your own civilization or you're going to be blocked out. And what in the 80s I used to say, hey guys, you men are enabling women to have bad behavior. And they're like, oh man, come on. And guys are like, oh man, when's the last time you got laid? They're doing all this. No, man, you older guys just kept giving women passes. Oh man, it's just a woman. You just gotta let her go. And they just kept taking more and more. You give them an inch, they take a mile. You give them a mile, now they're taking your lives, your life savings, half your pension. And you guys are paying a price. Younger guys are seeing this. And in the 80s, I gave lots of warnings, and you guys ignored it. Some of you guys are telling me I'm a misogynist. You think I hate women because I take a stand. What's in the best interest of society? So, like I say, in the end, ladies are going to lose. So, if you think of it in a way, we're going to be understanding, if women keep going the way they are, why the Greeks made them property. So if it's not Generation Z, whoever's behind them, I don't know if that's going to be Z1, who knows we categorize everything, right? At some point, men are going to take a stand and just get tired of it. And women are going to find themselves property, or you're going to have to go off and go create your own civilization. And so, yes, all of this is leading up to my top 10 ways women sabotage themselves. So I'm creating context before I get into this list. So to make sure my message is clear, what I'm going to do is use a number of insightful stories. Some will be from my life, some will be from the animal world, but I want to make it relevant and real for people. I want to make sense. I know sometimes people say I can be abstract. Some of you say that I have exhibited wisdom. So all of you who said that, I want to say thank you for that. This video, I want to make sure any wisdom I do have, I'm actually putting it out there, because some of these things I've been saying for decades, and I took some time out to really think this through. Actually came out here in the woods and thought about this. So while the title is about women, for sure it's about men. And if you think about it, right, from what I just said about teenagers watching their mothers, a lot of these boys and teenagers, young men, are being raised by single mothers. That's a problem. Why? Because a mother's not going to teach her son, teenager, toddler, how to be a man. As I grew up with both parents, the way you learn is not by having these sit-down talks with your grandfather or your uncle. You learn it by watching your father in day-to-day activities. You watch his decision-making process. You get to see your mother's decision-making process contrasted with your father's. And then you get to see how your father interacts with other men in the family, his brothers and his uncles and his father. You get to see how men resolve conflict, which is different from the way women resolve conflict. And if you don't have that, Your mother cannot give it to you. And this nonsense about women thinking that they can teach a man how to be a man or how to treat women, most of the advice women are giving out here for guys is a lie. It doesn't work. That's why so many guys are having problems with women. So more and more boys are being raised by single moms. So this video, I'm suggesting, I actually urge you, share it. Share this video with young guys that you know. Guys who grew up with single mothers. Guys who are having problems with women in the workplace or with their girlfriend or wife. Because if you don't understand how women sabotage themselves, you won't really know what to do about it. So the first thing, it's like addictive behavior, right? The first thing is recognizing it. So some guys are addicted to women's drama. So I'm going to give you some help in how to recognize it so you can actually do something about it. And if you don't recognize it, there's nothing you can do about it, right? So imagine, here's a story to illustrate. Imagine you hear a woman speaking the language Hmong, M-U-N-G, right? And imagine it's this beautiful woman, she's speaking to you in Hmong and she's telling you she likes you and she wants to get to know you. She's attracted to you. And she's speaking Hmong. You probably, most of you never even heard of Hmong. What is Hmong? What is it? Is that something you eat? No. Most of you, that's something you didn't even know you didn't know. It's a language spoken in Lao. So it doesn't, if you're not exposed to it, you don't know about it. That's the same. If your son is not exposed to his father on a day-to-day basis, he has no idea how a man develops and engages the world. See, your brain records only what it's exposed to. So if your brain doesn't record Hmong, it doesn't matter what's being said to you. You'll have no clue what someone's saying to you in Hmong. Just like you'll have no clue how to be a man if you've never seen it on a day-to-day basis. And what a lot of guys are doing now is they're depending on the media as manhood. Others are going to gangs. And a lot of what's displayed as manhood is like in a 90-minute or 2-hour movie where you don't actually get to see how the person developed. The journey is more important, that development, than the actual destination of being a man. A man, development into manhood happens day to day, moment by moment. And a lot of guys are not getting that exposure in their brains, so they don't even have it in there to recall. Like your brain is recalling stuff your father did. And it hurts women also if they've never seen their father make decisions and engage his mother and see the difference. She won't even know what a man looks like. She only has representations from the media. It makes it easier for a man to play her if she's only seen the media. So, what am I getting at in setting up this picture here? What I'm getting at is you can cause devastation for boys growing up without a father. And as a mother, you'll never see that devastation. You won't have any clue. You'll be trying to figure out why your son is so emotional, or why he's getting used and abused or mistreated, or having a problem with girls, or why he's abusing women. You'll have no clue. Just one more story before I get into this. This is a real story from the zoo in DC. So there was an elephant that only lived in captivity. And that female elephant was impregnated and had its baby elephant. And the first thing that female elephant tried to do was stomp and kill her baby. Why? Because she didn't grow up in the wild with other elephants where her mother And the other females in the group exhibited on a day-to-day basis how to deal with the newborn. So what the zookeepers and zoologists, what they saw was this elephant had no idea how to deal with her own baby. Like, she dealt with her baby like it was some kind of threat and tried to kill it. They had to separate her. Otherwise, she was going to kill her own baby. And she didn't even know that it's wrong. So when you see a lot of these guys who are abusing women, that's all they know, especially coming from a mother that's frustrated and abusing. So the only way they know how to relate to a woman or think love is or attention or control and domination is to be abusive, verbally or physically. Because they didn't grow up seeing their mother being loved and having affection and having great communication. So a lot of guys and women are like this mother elephant. They have no idea how to interact. So biologically, a boy grows into a man. Mentally, intellectually, emotionally, that transition, the tools are not there, and the number one tool is dad. You know, I've heard great stories about stepfathers. I've seen them with cousins or uncles who've done a great job, but that's not everyone. And in this environment, a lot of guys don't even want that role for a woman who just went out and had a bunch of children. So it's not as rewarding to do that now as it was in the past. So ladies, another way you're going to be losing. And before I get to my list, another thing that has happened that makes a problem in the United States is that the feminists came up with this great idea that how about we make men more feminine and women more masculine? Who the hell came up with that? I mean, you talk about throwing things off. You know, I give the Chinese much credit because they understand the yin and the yang, and they built a society where the woman plays her role and she's biologically built for that, and men play their role and they're biologically meant for that. And as you see, it's successful. The US, we're tripping all over the place trying to get men to be more masculine, and now women feel like, well, guys are not men anymore. But this is what you wanted, and this is the price you'll pay. And even worse is men have become, they've always been disposable. We're more disposable now, whether it's homelessness or unemployment. It's more important to give women the jobs. In the past, we understood that you give the jobs to men so they can take care of their families. Well, what's funny, ladies, you want to be like, I can be a man too. Except your ass doesn't want to get out there on the front line of the battlefields. You don't want to be the garbage man. You don't want those deadly jobs that men have. You want convenience. So, let's get into this list. Top 10 things. And you might think I just named off the sabotage, saboteur behavior. I gave you a context, and now I'm going to help you understand very specific things women do to sabotage so that you can actually understand it, identify it, and nip it in the bud. Let's start with number 10. Women just don't think long term. They don't. And when they do, it's very rare. So most women think about right now. And if you give a woman a bottle of water and she has to cross the desert, well, she's thirsty right now, right? And she expects men to provide resources, water. So she's going to take that bottle of water and drink it at the beginning of the desert and guzzle that water down. And somewhere in the middle, she's going to be thirsty. And she's going to wonder why there isn't any water. The princess needs water. She drank all her water before she was halfway through. No long-term thinking. And that's devastating, whether it's her career. If you look at what I just said a few minutes ago about long-term, women are going to end up being like the ancient Greeks treated them. We don't want you in a workplace. We don't want you making decisions. We gave you power and you made a mess. Long term, men are not going to tolerate that. And women are just clearly don't want to build their own civilization. So unless they want to go off and build their own, at some point, long term, they're going to pay a price for not thinking about the long term, not thinking about the impact of raising a family as a single woman, the emotional trauma that happens when one of the parents is missing from the home. They just don't think about long term. And that brings me to number 9. Number 9. They don't think about the big picture. Women think about, they think selfishly about themselves. What am I going to get? Right? So you might think long-term and big picture is the same. It's really not. Long-term is what are going to be the consequences down the line, beyond right now, and beyond tomorrow, beyond even next year. All right? The Chinese are really good. Chinese do this 100-year planning. In the U.S., we do 1, 5 years. Hell, corporations do quarter to quarter. Except you have to give corporations some respect because they will think about the big picture. You know, competitive landscape, right? They do SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So women generally don't think as strategic as men, which requires you to think about the big picture. There's a guy, Jay Forrester, he's a professor, was a professor at MIT, and he created something called system dynamics. And the way he looks at is any business or society is an ecosystem. And if you change one part of that ecosystem, you can positively or negatively affect the entire ecosystem. So if you look at putting most women in the workplace, that puts a lot of guys in unemployment. And by a couple of things happen, right? So you lower the bar to get women in the workplace, which now creates a culture of mediocrity in the workplace, where you also put more men in unemployment than ever, and those guys are going to crime, they're going to drugs and alcohol, they're going into depression, they're needing some pharmaceutical. And how does that make a society stronger if most of your society is employed by women? Like big picture, that's like long-term and big picture. There are so many different elements in our society beyond women, and women are just thinking about themselves and what they want. And I have a college degree, and damn it, I want a job. What about the big picture? How does that impact the children? Women don't want to marry a guy who's unemployed. Men will marry an unemployed woman. So the big picture, how is that going to make our society better? And have we benefited as a society by having more women in the workplace? Aside from women selfishly thinking, well, now I can work and I have my own money, how has society benefited? What were better ways for us to do? I'm not against women working. There are women who are very good, very effective, but most of you are not as effective as you think you are. One of the downsides of the wilderness, I've got a friendly bumblebee here trying to get to know me. Hopefully it's not a female bee having a problem with what I'm talking about. As you can see, yeah, this bee is on my arm now. Anyway, so wow, this bee, you must really like me. Um, Number 8, women manipulate instead of negotiate. So what am I saying? Instead of talking things through and understanding what both parties want, what are the long-term effects, what are the big picture, women selfishly will manipulate instead of negotiate and think things through. They cry, they yell, they scream, they play the woman card. Look at that Amy Cooper when she had her dog off the leash. She attempted to manipulate the guy by saying, I'm going to dial 911 and say, you're a black man, I'm threatened. That was pure manipulation. Women do that in the workplace. That's an example of not thinking about the big picture, because whether you manipulate your children, your spouse, or your neighbor, or your date, people generally don't like being manipulated. Now, there are a lot of guys who believe they have no choice and they can't do anything about it, but most guys, or most people, even your children, will get back at you. It creates resentment, right? So that's an example of how women are not thinking about the big picture. They'll manipulate to get what they want in the short term without thinking in the long term that there are going to be consequences. And perhaps the problem is in the way we're raising children to not understand, for women, that manipulation has consequences. We want to tell little girls they are princesses and they should get everything, and manipulation is okay and she can do no wrong. Number 7 leads me right into number 7. She can do no wrong. So what does that mean? She has to always be right. You guys know what I'm talking about. She has to be right. No matter what. She'll invalidate you. She will manipulate you. She will argue with you about things she knows nothing about. I mean, for me, that's mind-boggling. When I have conversations with women and I ask, have you ever researched this topic? Have you ever heard of this topic before? No, but that doesn't make sense. But she wants to be right. And you have to really wonder, what could make a person have to want to be right that often? What does that say about the way they see themselves? So in most cases, when people are doing that, their perspective of themselves is so low, and they just don't want you to know they have a low view of themselves, so they try to hide it by always trying to be right. And in the end, she loses. The problem is, guys, you accept it and believe there's nothing you can do about it. But if you understand that really that has more to do with a low view of herself and has nothing to do with you, you can step back and not get emotionally caught up in it. I mean, there are even jokes all over the internet about, hey, if your wife tells you you're right, you should be worried. Like, why should a man be worried or afraid of his wife? I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, but that's one of those blah, blah, blah. Why would a man be afraid of a woman? Why? She's gonna deny you sex to be right? So I actually just covered 2. So they argue, women, so number 7 is they have to be right. Number 6 is they will argue about things they don't even know about. So the joke is, a woman is going to argue with you and a man is always going to lose. And a lot of times, guys, you just kind of cave in. I'm not saying you need to argue with your wife about every little petty thing. What I'm saying is, you set a precedent when you just shut down and say, well, you know, there's nothing you can do about it. This is a place where men have to really put their foot down. And see, if you reward bad behavior of a woman who's arguing when she doesn't know what she's talking about, or she's just really attempting to manipulate or invalidate you, or arguing because she wants to keep up with a reputation that women are always right, or women are smarter than men, you do yourself a disservice. You need to bring logic and intelligence to the conversation. And as fathers, you have a responsibility to infuse that kind of logic and to cut your daughter off from always trying to be right. And you have to do this with your wife. While you have to do this as a loving husband with affection, you still have to do it. Otherwise, it's going to escalate into a bad situation. And a lot of mothers may not know how to do that with their daughters without being nasty and invalidating. And if you don't teach your daughters how to logically think things through instead of just presupposing I have to be right because I'm a woman, you're going to do her a disservice, and she'll end up with lousy men or abusive men, because the abuse may be the only way some guys know how to deal with that. Which gets me to number 5. Number 5 is women make decisions with their feelings. And using feelings to make decisions make women indecisive. And if you think about that, right, you raise a boy in a household with a woman who makes decisions based on feelings. I get that, men and women can say, I have a gut feeling about this. But generally, men are going to look to back up that gut feeling with, well, I have a gut feeling. Are there any assertions? Is this grounded in any kind of reality? Which is how you often get women arguing with you, because they're only arguing based on how everything feels to them. And there's no logic, there's no assertion. There's like zero assertion that can be grounded in reality. Even if you're creating this new future that's never existed, it needs to be grounded in something as opposed to grounded in a pipe dream. And it's what a lot of women will use, a pipe dream analogy, to make a point about something they don't even know about. So, understand that women are making decisions based on feelings, and you understand how a lot of them end up as single mothers. They married the wrong person based on a feeling, as though feelings make relationships work. No. Feelings are up here today and down here tomorrow. That's not what makes a relationship work. I've already talked about compatibility in another video. So, that was number 5. Women make decisions based on feelings. Number 4, this is a big one. This is a big one on how women eventually sabotage their relationships. They use sex as a weapon. And I'm not just talking about the physical act of sex and withholding it. They use sex as a weapon in the way they dress, the way they look for attention. They even use that in the workplace. They use sex, sexuality, enticement, sexual body parts, their ass, their tits. They dress a certain way in tight pants with their vagina lips screaming out at you. While it gets attention, it allows them to manipulate. And a lot of you guys actually fall for that in the workplace. And sometimes that's completely abused by women. The irony is, they present themselves as an object to be sexually desired and then complain that men objectify them. Is that based on a feeling or insanity? Number 3. They don't want to do the work. This is why you've never seen a civilization, a successful, thriving civilization built by women. They don't want to do the work. They want to demand a table at the seat. I want to be equal. Let me in. But they don't want to be there from the beginning and do all the dirty work. They don't want to risk losing their lives. And even when you look in your relationships, they don't want to do the work to actually think things through. They'd rather go based on presuppositions, and they'll tell you what other men have done or what their friends have done. They won't do the work to actually think things through, talk things through. That's why manipulation becomes easier. They won't do the work, let's say, to be a computer programmer, to write code. They'd rather manipulate some guy to do the work and cheat their way through. And when it comes time to getting the job, what do you find? The same pattern. That makes them a liability. Not doing the work will cost the company in culture. It becomes mediocre. If you're going to be in a relationship, it takes work. If you're going to have a society, it takes work. And women want to claim that they don't have to play roles. That means they don't have to do the work. That means men do the work. And they get to sit back and say they don't have to play a role, but they should be entitled. How can you be entitled if you don't do the work? Number 2, this one is huge. And I want you guys to really understand how much of an impact number 2 has on you in the world, in your family. Women only care about looking good and avoiding looking bad. So, yes, that could be the way you wear clothes, right? But I'm not just talking about looking good when she walks down the street, because there are a ton of women who are just fat and obese, right? There's nothing good looking about that. And even though our society tells women a man should love you the way you are, right? So that's a way for women to avoid looking bad, is to shame men for saying, I don't like fat women. So what is it? Women like a guy who's 6'2", he's built, he's diesel, he makes a healthy 6-figure income, he's well-educated, intelligent, and she wants to be 5'4", 217 pounds. The guy's 6'2", 225. They're 8 pounds apart, and she's almost a foot shorter. But yet, if he says, well, I don't like fat women, 5'4", 217 is obese. And when he says that, she's shaming. Now she's a victim. You see, that's how this thing of looking good and avoiding looking bad. So it's a way to completely sidestep, like a running back going downfield and sidestepping like you're sidestepping a running back, sidestepping a defensive end. Well, women get to avoid responsibility when they don't want to look bad and say, well, maybe I have a health problem, or I was depressed, or it's amazing the excuses. My children made me fat because I got pregnant, and then I only focused on my kids, so the kids I didn't get to do to this and do that. All the excuses. 0.0% responsibility. So she gets to put the blame on everyone else to look good and take zero responsibility for being fat. So and in the workplace, they'll play victim. In your relationship, if they cheat, they'll say, well, you made me cheat. How did I make you cheat? So women, this is a big one, right? So Playing victim is a way to avoid responsibility and avoid looking bad. The way you dress is to look good, right? Going to college and saying, yay, I have a degree, that's looking good if you really are not competent, if you cheated your way through college, if you really haven't accomplished anything aside from saying, I have a job, a house, and a car. What, you're incompetent. How you translate that college degree into practical knowledge and practical accomplishment, achievement, is not very much, aside from just having a job. That makes you mediocre. Anything outside of what you learned in college, you become incompetent. You're incompetent in relationships. But then the way women avoid saying they're incompetent in relationships, they just say there are no good men out there, or the good men are in prison. Think about that. How can the good men be in prison? Like, what kind of mindset does a woman have to believe that the good men are in jail, are criminals, the rapists, the robbers? Oh, right, that's that hybristophilia thing. Right, I forgot. Yes. Right, and they'll even use an excuse and justification for why they pick criminals, murderers, rapists, guys who commit infidelity and cheat. All of this, they'll make justifications so that they can look good and not look like they did something really stupid, which is what they've done. They become fat, justification. They cheat, justify. They go to college and they have all this debt that they can't pay off and they want someone else to pay it off. Or it's a man's job. No responsibility on her part. Women, one of the things they've mastered is avoiding responsibility. And the only way women can avoid responsibility is if you men allow that. Man, there must be pollen in my throat. So, guys, the only reason they are getting away with this whole scam of looking good and avoiding looking bad is because you allow it. You believe you do not have the right to say anything. And as a man, you're supposed to tough it up, suck it up. That's what it's supposed to be like to be a man. And you know what? Now your teenage sons and grandsons and younger brothers are walking away. Can you imagine what this is going to have, the impact on birth rates in the United States? And if this catches on globally? Ladies, what are you going to do? You're going to keep pretending you don't need a man? Which gets me to the number one thing that women do that completely sabotages. This one is huge. I mean, this is like, this is really big. So big, I need to take a sip of water. Because I really want you to understand the number one thing women do to sabotage their very own lives is they pretend they are something they are not. So you might think, so what, right? No, this is big. Women pretend they're something they are not. They pretend they're tough and strong until it's time to be tough and strong. Like, you know, get out there on the front line of the battlefield and show us how tough and strong you are. They are independent until it's time to pay bills, and then they're asking guys for $40 to pay their phone bill, or they're looking to marry someone to pay their student loans, or they're looking for some guy to marry, what they say, marry up, so that strong and independent woman with 3 children by 3 different guys and you chose guys who are locked up in jail or dead, and now you're responsible for 3 children that it's over your head to take care of, and you're looking for some guy to clean up the mess you made, right? Because you were pretending that you knew what you were doing and you could handle this situation. There are women pretending that they know how to manage money. And you hear the stories about women living off their parents. Some of them still live with their parents. But I'm talking about the fathers who are still paying their daughter's rent and car note. And that same woman will tell you how independent she is and how she should be treated as this independent woman. Like, are you kidding? Daddy is paying the bills. Daddy, my car note, Daddy, I need a new car. Yet she's pretending that she is something she's not and doesn't even know how to be that. Listen, this is so insane, pretending to be something that you're not. Women, the whole feminist saying that women can be men, that's another pretending. Women can teach a boy how to be a son, that's another pretending. Imagine these women pretending to be a man. That's no different than a woman getting on all fours and barking like a dog and pretending to be a dog. How much respect would you have for her? That's like the little skinny nerdy guy in IT who's 5'8", 125 pounds, pretending he's as big and strong as Arnold Schwarzenegger. How much respect does he get for that? Right? We men normally don't respect people who are pretending to be something they're not. Yet women want the respect of pretending to be something they're not. Even like leadership. So let's think about leadership, right? There are all kinds of studies that compare men and women as managers, as leaders. And you know what? There are some things that women do better. Let's give them their props, right? Women are known for creating a pleasant work environment, right? So they can be good at creating a team environment. Where women suck, and I mean they suck by a long shot, it's a huge difference between men and women, is women are horrible at handling problems, disruptions, chaos, breakdowns. And see, here's the problem. That's like one of the most important things of being a leader, is handling problems. You get paid the big bucks for handling the big problems. And some time ago, a few years ago, I made a video on the difference between management and leaders. Why do many managers never move up to leaders, to higher level leaders? If you haven't seen that video, I strongly suggest it. But in short, a leader's job is to literally create problems in the organization. And if you're not creating problems, you're not a CEO. You're not a leader of any sort. And I understand that may sound counterintuitive, but in that video I really lay it out. So, and if women are horrible at dealing with problems, and being a leader is a major thing for women to do, she's going to suck at being a leader. She's never going to pull that off. She's going to be pretending to be a leader. And when it comes down to when they say rubber meets the road, and you are in that position as a leader to literally create problems for your organization or your team to solve, and you're uncomfortable dealing with problems because you're trying to coddle everyone and make everyone feel safe and as a team, that has its place. But when you create an environment where you intentionally disrupt status quo and create problems, you're uncomfortable with that. You are not a leader. You're more of a babysitter. And that is not a leader. So when women pretend to be leaders, even in their relationships where they're pretending to lead a man and don't understand the real foundation and the power that leaders generate, that causes more harm than good. So when women are pretending to be something they are not, it hurts everyone around them. So remember, if women spend more effort manipulating, not knowing how to negotiate, that also affects the ability to lead, or makes it clear that she's not able to. And the manipulation where she screams and you hear, "You're only treating me like this because I'm a woman." No, you suck at as a leader. You might have a title. A title doesn't make you a leader. Pretending to be a title doesn't do it for you. One of the other things that, especially in relationships, and this tends to backfire and hurt women, is so many women pretend they don't like sex. Technically speaking, women may enjoy sex more than men. Why? Because a man, when he comes, it will last on average about 6 seconds. A woman, on average, it will last about 23 seconds. 6 seconds, 23 seconds. So she gets 23 seconds of this ecstatic feeling. And if she really knows her body, she's going to get 23 seconds of multiple coming, which means she's enjoying it. If she comes 5 times to your 1, even if you're using some stimulant, a guy is coming how many times in a night? In a woman, see, you ladies pretend sex is not important to you until a man says, "I don't want you sexually." All of a sudden, that pretension disappears. So women pretending they don't want sex, it hurts you in the long run because it turns your guy off, pretending you're not interested in sex. He ends up going somewhere else to get it because his needs need to be met. And you pretending makes you inauthentic, right? No one likes an inauthentic person. Women pretend they're not interested when they're interested in a man. Women pretend that they are the prize when they're not a prize. Like, what makes you a prize? I did a video on that. And just ask a woman who's pretending to be a prize to tell you exactly what makes her a prize. And if she tells you it's her uterus, well, hell, pay a surrogate. Tell her to go to a surrogate company and you'll pay her to have a kid and then go away afterwards. Except if you think about this, this is how women don't think long term. What happens when you go through menopause and can no longer have children? Does that mean you're no longer the prize? Is your being the prize only predicated on your uterus? What if you get a hysterectomy? Like, do women really think about the big picture? So, women who pretend they're something they're not are dangerous to themselves. Because even pretending like, I'm tough, I'll beat your ass. And then the guy strikes, or she pretends she's tough and puts her hands in a guy and he strikes back, bang! She's out on the floor. You see it. This is dangerous to her. If that's your woman pretending to be tough and you now have to go clean up the mess that she made, that could be dangerous for you. There are plenty of times where a guy took a bullet for a woman. So, let me go down this top 10 again. So the 10 are: women don't think about the long term. That's number 10. Number 9, they don't think about the big picture. Number 8, they manipulate instead of negotiate. Number 7, they have to be right. Number 6, they argue and debate about things they know nothing, even if they don't know about the topic. Number 5, they make decisions based on feelings and emotions. Number 4, they use sex as a weapon. Number 3, they do not want to do the work. Number 2, they only care about looking good or avoiding looking bad. And number one, they pretend to be something they are not. So this is a message, men. You need to understand these 10 things so that when you encounter any of them with a woman, you understand them for exactly what they are and do not get caught up into the emotion, into the manipulation. Because if she gets you into an emotional argument, that pulls you down. If you are a man and you have a son who is being raised by his single mother, share this video with him. If you're an uncle or grandfather, you're an older brother, share this video, because young men who have taken this MGTOW and are going their own way, they still have to encounter women. They need tools and knowledge to be able to make decisions. If you're a man and you are an adult, you're 30 years old, you're 50 years old, you're 70 and you're still dealing with these things, you need to be able to call women out on them and not have to sit back and pretend like you have to take it. And that's what it means to be a man, is to take it up your ass and be strong about it. So, like my video, share it, comment. I want to hear your comments. Share it even with women who need to know this. Ladies, you have a son. Think about what's in the best interest of your son. Think about the big picture. Think about the long term and what's going to happen if he doesn't understand these things. So ladies, I implore you to share this with your son. And if you're not in my Facebook group called Straight Talk, join me. Join me Sunday evenings at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for my talk show. Love to hear your comments on these topics. And until then, everyone, thank you, and I'll talk to you soon.